The rain fell against the windows in a soft, steady rhythm, a lonely sound that echoed inside the quiet house. Daniel adjusted the collar of his only decent shirt, his heart pounding harder than he wanted to admit. It had been years since he'd gone on a date, years since he'd let anyone come this close to his life, to his world. Tonight was supposed to be simple, a blind date, arranged by a friend who had insisted he try again, that he deserved a chance at happiness. But as the clock ticked closer to 7, as his little boy, Ethan, sat at the table coloring in silence, Daniel couldn't shake the gnawing unease in his chest. He told himself it was just nerves. He didn't know yet that the moment the woman stepped through his front door, his entire life would change. He didn't know that his son would look up, eyes wide, face pale, and whisper words that froze the air in the room, "Dad, that's my teacher." Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the way fate weaves unexpected miracles into our lives, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Ripple of Hope, and share it with someone who could use a reminder that love often finds us when we least expect it. Your support means the world. Daniel had spent the last 5 years burying himself in work and fatherhood, ever since his wife walked out and left him to raise Ethan alone. The nights were the hardest. He'd stay awake listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the soft breathing of his son asleep in the next room, and wonder if he was enough. Was he giving Ethan everything he needed? Was he teaching him strength, love, resilience? Or was he just surviving? His days blurred between double shifts at the auto repair shop, quick dinners of macaroni and canned soup, and Ethan's endless questions about life, about the world, about why some kids had 2 parents waiting at pickup and others didn't. Daniel always tried to answer, but deep down, he feared he was failing. That was why he agreed to this blind date. Not because he was desperate, but because he was tired of living with only silence and routine. When the doorbell rang, Daniel wiped his palms on his jeans, muttered a prayer under his breath, and opened the door. She stood there, graceful, poised, a warm smile cutting through the rain behind her. Her name was Claire. She held a small bouquet of sunflowers, awkward yet sincere, as if she wasn't sure how to begin either. Daniel felt a flicker of hope, a sense that maybe tonight could be different. He invited her in, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. But then it happened. Ethan, who had been drawing at the table, looked up. The crayon slipped from his fingers. His little body stiffened, his face drained of color, and he whispered the words that froze Daniel in place, "She's my teacher." The air turned heavy. Claire's smile faltered, confusion flashing in her eyes. Ethan's small voice trembled, and his shoulders hunched as though the world had just turned upside down. Daniel looked from his son to the woman in front of him, his heart thundering. How could this be? What were the odds? He had never once asked Ethan who his teacher was, life had been too hectic, days too rushed. And now, fate had dropped her right here, at his door. For a long, awkward moment, no one spoke. Ethan's eyes filled with something Daniel hadn't seen before, fear, maybe even betrayal. He clutched his drawing close to his chest like a shield. Claire's face softened as she knelt to Ethan's level, her voice gentle, her presence calm. But Ethan turned away, burying his face in his arms. Daniel's chest ached. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. The hours that followed were a quiet storm of emotions. Daniel tried to lighten the mood, tried to explain that sometimes adults met in unexpected ways, but Ethan wouldn't let it go. His son was usually cheerful, curious, full of life, but tonight he was distant, withdrawn. And Daniel, sitting across from Claire, couldn't help but feel torn in two. Part of him wanted to lean into the warmth he saw in her eyes, the kindness that radiated from her voice. But another part of him knew Ethan's feelings came first, always. He couldn't ignore the weight his little boy carried in his small shoulders. The night ended early. Claire, ever graceful, thanked Daniel for dinner and left with a smile that seemed a little sad, as if she understood the storm raging in both father and son. Daniel watched her go, his chest heavy, his mind spinning. He tucked Ethan into bed later, but the boy didn't want to talk. He only whispered one thing before falling asleep: "Dad, don't let her take my mom's place," and those words broke him. Days turned into weeks, and though Daniel tried to bury the memory, Claire lingered in his thoughts. She wasn't just Ethan's teacher anymore, she had become a question he couldn't answer, a door fate had cracked open. But every time he considered reaching out, Ethan's quiet voice echoed in his mind. The boy had already lost so much, how could Daniel risk his trust, his fragile sense of family? Yet at school meetings, during pickups, he'd see Claire. And each time, their eyes would meet for a second too long, their smiles carrying the weight of everything unsaid. It wasn't until Ethan struggled with reading assignments, until Claire gently reached out to Daniel after class one evening, that the walls began to shift. She spoke not as a date, not as a woman he might care for, but as a teacher who wanted the best for his son. She praised Ethan's kindness, his imagination, his potential. And as Daniel listened, he saw something he hadn't seen in years, someone who believed in his boy, who saw him not as broken or incomplete, but as whole, capable, extraordinary. For the first time, Daniel allowed himself to hope. Maybe fate hadn't made a mistake after all. Maybe it had led him here because love, in all its forms, between father and son, between a teacher and her student, between two lonely hearts, had the power to heal what had once been shattered. The road wasn't easy. Ethan resisted at first, guarding his heart fiercely. But slowly, through small moments, Claire sitting beside him during reading, cheering for him at the school play, laughing with Daniel in ways that made their house feel alive again, he began to soften. And one night, months later, Ethan climbed onto Daniel's lap and whispered the words Daniel never thought he'd hear: "Dad, I think it's okay if she stays." Daniel held his son close, tears burning his eyes. For the first time in years, their home felt whole again. If this story touched your heart, please don't leave without liking, commenting, and subscribing to Ripple of Hope. Share this video with someone who believes in love, second chances, and the miracles that appear when we least expect them. Your engagement helps us keep bringing powerful, emotional stories like this one to life. And before you go, we'd love for you to comment below: do you believe fate brings people together for a reason, or is it all just coincidence?